provincial policy statement and the provincial interests in agriculture. I bet you all think that the province has an interest in your private farms, don't you? You think that they can pass regulation for you, don't you? They cannot. The provincial interests in agriculture are restricted to farm prisons, community farm fairs, agricultural societies, the OFA, the NFU, the Christian farmers. That's provincial interest, not your private farms. But they're trying to say, well, we can plan for your private farms. We're going to tell the municipalities what the percentage of agricultural land they're supposed to have. But the key problem with all of that is, OMAFRO at that time would not release how it determined the percentage of agricultural land. And then when it came to that public meeting, this is the fun part. Well, if you didn't like 70-30, you could have 80-20. They were guessing. Just like the conservation authorities do with their 100-year flood plan. Best estimates. And that, by the way, was in a Rideau Conservation Authority report last year. They all know that the 100-year floodplain is only best estimates. They have no science. So how can you possibly tell someone you're in a floodplain when they have absolutely nothing to support that? And by the way, in the Conservation Authority report, if a flood area is not reserved in the letters patent, there is no flood area. I have a patent from 1962 and the survey which shows the flood area that had to be reserved. This is the whole thing. No one knows or understands the law. That's what these councillors are going to be walking into. They are going to be told that they are God. Staff is going to tell them, oh, those landowners don't know what they're talking about. Really? Well, I've taken on quite a few lawyers, and I've beat quite a few lawyers. I even had a young lawyer come to a meeting in Norfolk. After I was finished speaking, everybody knows I smoke, and I went outside to have a smoke. So Buddy chases me out. He was a young new lawyer. And in front of all these people that were standing around me, he says, "You've misled every person in that room." I said, "Really?" And he says, "Yes. Section 109 has nothing to do with private property. It has to do with Indian reservations." Now you're going, what is Section 109? That's Section 109 of the British North America Act, which states, "The lands, mines, minerals, and royalties of the province at the time of union, subject to any trust or any interest not of the province in the same." The trusts and interests not of the province, that's your private property. He thought that only referred to natives and the treaties. I said, "Really?" "Well, you know, I'm thinking you might want to get a copy of the 72 resolutions that were created in 1864, which were sent to England in 1865, which were then ratified into the document of 1867, because Section 56 of the 1864 document is actually Section 109. And all they left out was, because you guys were supposed to know this, they left out the sentence, "the trust or interests of any person." Because you lawyers are supposed to know that that means any person. Well, I don't know. I haven't read that. But then I agree with Randy Hillier. Those patents mean nothing. And I said, "Really?" I said, "So obviously you haven't read Roundtree Beach Association. You haven't read Saker versus Middlesex. You haven't read the 1935 case, the Attorney General of Manitoba versus the Attorney General of Canada." Well, no. Well, no. And I said, "Well, you know what, young man?" I said, and there's an older fellow standing beside me, and he says, "You're crushing that guy." And I said, "I really don't want to." And I just said to him, I said, "Young man," I said, "until you have read what I have read, we can't even have a conversation." But I'm going to tell you something, that was a very sad night for me. Because I really and truly, I don't really like crushing anybody. But when I know that someone is going to be taking me on, and it's going to be hurting you, he better make sure that he is fully informed. And he better know what I know. And he had better read everything that I have read. The other night, I actually did a Norton scan on my computer. I have 1.1 million files. And as for the parliamentarians, back in the 1600s, the mid-1600s, the United Kingdom was actually a republic under Oliver Cromwell. And in 1649, there was an act, and it was called the Agreement of the People. And it was for the parliamentarians, the legislators. They are constitutionally restricted to upholding all of your common law, Magna Carta, guaranteed, inalienable, inviolable rights. And those rights consist of your right to life, limb, liberty, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, private property, and freedom of contract. And when anyone from government says to anyone here, or any lawyer has the audacity to actually say to anyone, well, under Section 9213 and 9216 of the British North America Act, which are titled Property and Civil Rights in the Province, and all things merely local and private in nature in the province, if they tell any of you that they have control over your property and your civil liberties and anything at all to do with you, you tell them they better get a copy of the 1859 Property and Civil Rights Act, which refers them to our Constitution of 1792. But in the preamble, it clearly states, the province has absolutely zero control over any lands, tenements, hereditaments, or two-party contracts. In other words, they have absolutely no say over your private property. So that is it. I was too long-winded and I got the signal. I gotta go.
Wow, thank you so much. That's a lot of information. That's good. Hang on, wait, where are you going?
Really?
Yeah.